All right, there he is. Paul Hudrick from 97.3 ESPN.com. Inside the Sixers. Big win last night, Paul, and maybe get your opinion on this. I said at the beginning of the show, I thought it was one of their more impressive wins of the season. Broads was kind of
I thought it was their best win of the season.
Wow. Come on.
I really did. Yeah. Well, listen, because I think, and I get it, we all, myself included, complained about the fact that we have to stay up and watch basketball games at 10 o'clock at night.
Didn't we used to like that? How old are you, Hudrick?
I am 36 years old.
Wow, 36. So, like, when you're Broad's age, we used to love the 10 o'clock game.
Oh, yeah,
that was
sure.
the best. And now it's like,
10
man.
o'clock games are the best when it's baseball. I
No
love it when
way.
it's baseball.
No,
10
that's even
o'clock, relax, cup of
At
coffee.
least basketball, you're getting done around 12:30. Baseball, there is no definitive.
Even in extra
constant
innings?
action, too.
Come on,
Yeah.
3 a.m., extra innings? Go ahead, continue.
No, but yeah, so, we don't always get a chance to see some of these teams like the Kings. Listen, the Kings have been playing outstanding basketball. They had won 7 of 8 coming in. De'Aaron Fox was the Western Conference Player of the Week. You saw why. The kid is great. He can really play. And so I think that's what makes it impressive, too, is that the opponent on the road, West Coast, first game of a West Coast swing. Joel Embiid wasn't great for the first 3 quarters. Neither was Tobias Harris. And so all of that factored in to stay to when you didn't have your best that night for 3 quarters, to then stay in the game and then be in a position to have that dominant fourth quarter. To me, all those factors, that makes it the most impressive win they've had this season. I thought the fourth quarter, and listen, they've been great in the fourth quarter all season long, but just the way that they put the clamps down. That's the other thing. De'Aaron Fox has been. I just had Marshall Harris on the Coming In for Landing podcast, and he talked about how great De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Halliburton have been in the fourth quarter for the Kings. The Sixers shut them both down in the fourth quarter. So when you factor in all of that, to me, I think it was their best win of the season.
Interesting. Yesterday, Yaron Weitzman was on for Inside the Sixers and said the Sixers have been the best fourth quarter team in basketball. Statistically, they have been the best. You saw that last night. You saw them be the best team in the NBA because they took over that game in the fourth quarter. But what is it about what they did in the fourth quarter that led them to that win?
Well, just defense to me. I mean, they were just so much better on the defensive end. And obviously, Thybulle comes in. And I don't think we've talked enough about how great he has been defensively. I mean, I get it on the offensive end, he's giving you nothing. But defensively, he has been unreal. You saw what he did to Fox. I mean, he shut Fox down. And there was no help. There was just him, man to man, just his ability to stay in front of Fox and not let him get to the spots on the floor he wanted to get to. That was huge. And then just their team defense, I thought, was exponentially better. When you saw, the way they were helping their rotations, the way Joel Embiid anchored things. I thought Shake Milton defensively on Buddy Hield, I thought he was great. That was one of his better defensive performances I've seen him as an NBA player have. So I think it was just collectively the defensive effort. Plus, I mean, the reality is shot luck is a thing in the NBA. The Kings shot the lights out in the first half, so it evened itself out a little bit in the second. But the Sixers, you have to give them credit for really ramping it up on the defensive end. When you talk about them, I mean, number 1 in the NBA defensive rating in the fourth quarter at like 98. Typically, for those who don't understand defensive rating, if you're below 100 in defensive rating, that is elite. They're at 98. No other team is below 100 in the NBA right now. So they are just clamping down in the fourth quarter, and that's a big reason for their success.
When Matisse has nights like that, people scream that he might deserve more minutes, and I just wonder, would the impact be as strong if he logged more minutes? Is it the fact that he gives you those 20 minutes in that spurt is kind of what changes? Because, okay, you have one defender on you, and then you throw Mattise Thybulle for a little bit. It throws you out of funk, and then you throw someone else back on when Matisse goes to the bench or so. And you also got to remember that you're taking somebody else off the floor that might be able to help you offensively. So how do you answer that question then when people say, does he deserve more minutes?
I think he's in a good place with his minutes right now. And I think what I like that Doc Rivers does that maybe Brett Brown didn't do is if a lineup is looking good, he runs with it. It doesn't matter who's on the floor. If the lineup is doing well, he'll run with it. Shake Milton was going to close that game out last night if he didn't get hurt. Seth Curry had a great first half. Credit to Seth Curry because he kept him in the game in the first half because he was great, and that was great to see. But in the second half, that lineup with Embiid, Simmons, Harris, and then Shake Milton and Mattise Thybulle, that was the lineup that really did the job. That was the lineup that took the game over and led them to the win. And I think with Matisse, I do think there's a point you make, Broads, in the fact that showing teams different looks. I do think there is something there. I think you see Ben Simmons, you see Ben Simmons, you see Danny Green, you see Mattise Thybulle. It's three different guys. They're all, very good defenders in their own way, but it's a different look. And I think, and Doc Rivers even alluded to it after the game. He said that Matisse Thybulle was the better guy to handle Fox, because Fox is so unique with his how quick he is. It is so hard to stay with him one-on-one. I'm not sure coming into the game, I'm not sure anyone could have done it, but Mattise Thybulle did it. And to your point, Bros, maybe the fact that he was fresh and he didn't get overextended and Fox had played so many minutes, maybe that allowed Mattise Thybulle to have a little bit more energy at the end of the game that allowed him to bottle Fox up. So I think right now, to answer your question, I think Mattise Thybulle is in a very good spot minutes-wise. And, offensively, if he could ever just become a league average three-point shooter, he could be a really dangerous player. As it is right now, though, I think he is in a sweet spot in Doc Rivers' rotation.
Paul Hudrick, 97.3 ESPN.com. Check out the podcast, Coming In for a Landing, wherever you listen to podcasts. And his takeaways are up right now at 97.3 ESPN.com. And you wrote, Paul, this feels different. What feels different about this team in particular? I feel like, we talk a lot about, it's the regular season. I'll only believe it when I see the playoffs. But are you starting to believe more?
Well, for me, Mike, when I saw, and I tweeted this out, going into the fourth quarter, they were down 4, and I had tweeted, you know what? They're only down 4. They haven't played great. If they can just dig deep and play well in the fourth quarter, they can steal this game. And that's exactly what they did. And you just felt like they could do it. Whereas in the past, all those factors on the road, a team that's red hot, a player that's killing you, Embiid's not carrying you, Tobias Harris off night, all of those things, and they overcame it all. And that's not something we saw this team do in recent years. And there's been, I would say, at least a handful of games where you're watching them and you're thinking to yourself, there is no way last year's version of this team wins this game. And I think that's what's different, Mike, is it's just a feeling. And look, they're 7-5 on the road. That's actually the best road record in the Eastern Conference right now. They didn't win their 7th road game, I think, until like 32 games into last season. So those little things are just different, and it's a different feeling. There is a vibe that you feel like they are going to win, whereas last year you were just kind of wondering, okay, well, how are they going to blow this? Whereas now it's like, okay, how are they going to win this?
They scored 42 points, the Sixers did, in the first quarter. What did you see happen for them to lose that lead in the second? The dribble penetration was definitely killer. But do you chalk this up to you're just playing the pace of the Kings' play, and then once you dial into your own game in the second half, you close the door?
Yeah, I mean, it was clear the Kings' pace in the first half killed them. De'Aaron Fox was pushing the ball up the floor, and they run, man. That's what they do. And Tobias Harris told us after the game, they kept hearing the Kings bench yelling, run, 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 run. The coaching staff say that, and they almost took that personally in the second half. We're like, okay, well, no, you're not going to run it anymore. And, they really stepped up the defense on that end, really got back better. And I think it's one of those deals where you can prepare for a transition team. You can prepare for the speed of guys like that, but you can only do so much, because then once you get in a game, no one's going to mimic what De'Aaron Fox does, because only De'Aaron Fox can do it. So they had to see it in a game up close and get a feel for it and get in the game. Plus, they're on the West Coast. They're adjusting to that time. It's the start of a long road trip. So I think that was all a factor in the first half, and that led to them kind of, I don't want to say a total sleepy start, because, they were clearly in the game. They were scoring a lot of points. They just weren't defending. So I think the second half and Doc Rivers said this too, it wasn't necessarily an adjustment. It was just they started playing defense. And one of the key factors was, getting back and really mitigating that fast break and really kind of slowing the Kings down. And you saw it. They scored 40 points in the second half. That's an unbelievable way. That's an unbelievable thing to do against a team, especially one that had been playing so well.
Yeah, there's another thing that stood out to me last night, and I don't know if this is something that Embiid was conscious of or he's just trying to do more of, but he had 6 assists, and a lot of them are cross-court 3 passes. I mean, he had one big late in the game, and I talked at the beginning of the show about there's things that Simmons do out there that I don't know that people are really even noticing. He's just kind of standing, directing traffic, and people are like, oh, they're playing 4-on-5. And really, Ben is just kind of like, hey, you go there, I'll do this. Like, he's almost, the point person. But one of the things Ben does so well is he has this patience deep in the paint to just, I'll wait until you just have to come at me, and then I find you. I felt like Embiid was almost like, hey, I'm watching some Ben Simmons tape here. I'm going to draw defenders and boom. But I thought he did a really good job of noticing open guys, but waiting a little longer last night.
Yeah, I mean, that's really, Mike, that's been the story of the season to me is how, well, at least a part of it is how well he's handled those double teams all season long, and that he is trusting his instinct and he's trusting his teammates to make those open looks. And I think that's a big part of his success this year. Because it gives teams a little apprehension when they do want to double team him, especially if guys like Seth Curry, Shake Milton, Tobias Harris, if they're all making shots, that makes teams extra hesitant. And I think that's allowed him to get a little bit more space for himself and operate around the basket and score more. So I do think that's been, we talked so much about how great he's been this season, how efficient he's been. And that's, to me, that's as big a part of anything is him trusting his instincts, him almost inviting double teams and, and to your point, being patient and finding his guys and just, the fact that he trusts the guys around him to hit those shots like that was Doc Rivers pointed out and said that was his favorite play of the game in the fourth quarter. Embiid gets double teamed. He finds Tobias Harris in the opposite corner wide open, and Tobias Harris bangs home a three in a big spot too. I mean, the game was still very much in the balance at that point, and it was such a big spot to do it. So for him to have the wherewithal in that spot to do it just speaks volumes about where he is as a player and how he is seeing the floor.
Yeah, I thought the fourth quarter, there was the stretch where the Kings had like 8,000 offensive rebounds in one possession. They missed a wide open three, and then it was Tobias with the three you talked about, Mattise Thybulle with the block, and then Shake Milton with the three as well, and they kind of took it from there. But speaking of Tobias, this isn't the first time he had a strong fourth, and I just wonder, is it time to say, this is Tobias? This is the Tobias Harris that we have this season.
By the way, he played 41 minutes last night.
Yeah, he keeps logging in 40-plus constantly at this point, it feels.
Yeah, I mean, that's without Mike Scott in the lineup and, no true backup four, that's kind of what he's been doing. But also, Tobias has kind of been flourishing at times with that all-bench lineup because he's the guy. He's the man on that lineup. So you're seeing that. But, yeah, I mean, he's just been – so far he's been outstanding. And you have to just give Doc Rivers, all the credit in the world for it. And Tobias, a big thing he talked about last night was getting to his spots. And that's something that he can do really well. He's not the typical shot creator you would look at, fourth quarter, take a guy off the dribble and all. That's not his game. But because he's so big and strong, and when they put a smaller defender on him, he just kind of gets to where he wants on the floor because of that. And then he just shoots over guys, and he's almost automatic from the mid range. And that's what you're seeing. If he gets to his left and he's, within 20 feet of the basket and has a smaller defender on him, it's almost automatic he's going to score. And I think the fact that he's driving more, it's opening up that, and it's giving him a little bit more space. And I think the one thing that he talked about last night was just that horn set, which the horn set is basically two bigs on each of the elbows and then two corners. And when he's in that and he has Embiid to his left and he's setting screens for him and just knocking guys out of the play, it just creates so much more space. And I think Doc Rivers, and again, to point to something that Doc Rivers has done well that Brett Brown hasn't, I don't think Brett Brown did a very good job of utilizing Tobias Harris and putting him in the best spots to succeed. And you are seeing Doc Rivers do that every single night. So is he this guy? So far so good. We'll see. We're a third into the season, and he has been that guy. But if they want to achieve what they want to achieve, he needs to be this. He needs to be this all-star level, consistent player every single night.
Last one for Paul, Inside the Sixers, Paul Hudrick, at Paul Hudrick. Follow him there. Listen to his podcast, Coming In for a Landing, for more good Sixers conversation. What do you make of the rotation? How are you reading what we're seeing from the rotation? And no minutes for Maxey.
Yeah, it's tough because I'm a big Maxey guy, and I like him in the lineup, but I get why Doc's doing that. I guess you could theoretically, some lineups maybe go a little bit smaller and use Maxey and Milton and Korkmaz and Thybulle, and Dwight Howard obviously at the 5. But I think that hurts them a little bit because I think their size is part of what makes them so good. As much as they've gotten a little smaller this year compared to last year, I still think their size is one of the big reasons why they're so good defensively, because they're so tough and they rebound the ball so well and all that. But I think what Doc Rivers is doing, I'm okay with it. Korkmaz is a guy, he's so hot and cold. Korkmaz, I mean, you saw like the first half, he couldn't miss. And then the second half, I think he scored 1 point. So, and then defensively, he's definitely a liability on that end. But then again, if you put Maxey in the game, is he going to give you much more defensively? Maybe against a smaller player, but I don't know. So right now, I'm good with the rotation. I think Doc Rivers is letting it play out. And listen, things are going to happen. Shake Milton, obviously tweaked his ankle a little bit, so maybe that opens up a spot for Maxey to play next. So it's not like it's the last we've seen of Tyrese Maxey. He'll get his chances, and I like the fact that it seems like every time he does, he's ready for it. I do, whether it's Mike Scott coming back or whether it's them, finding somebody in the trade market, I would like to see them get a backup 4 of some kind just to kind of help out. But so far, I think Doc Rivers has done a solid job. And listen, when the guys play well, it makes the rotation, it makes you look like a genius for the guys you're playing when they're all playing well. So I think that's a part of it too, is that they're just playing really good basketball.
Well, we're enjoying it. And, of course, tonight they have the night off. They're back tomorrow night against the Portland Trailblazers. I predict a lot of points in that one. And then a fun one against the Suns on Saturday afternoon. We'll have all those games for you here on 97.3 ESPN. He's Paul Hudrick. This is Inside the Sixers on the Sports Bash, and he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. All right, Paul, take care, man.
You too, Mike. Thanks,
all right,
guys.
There he goes. Paul Hudrick, everybody, here on the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN.